Ooh.
Okay, joining.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Whitney.
Hello, Director Hollingsworth. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. Ready for a conservation webinar.
That's right.
Everyone, we will get started here in just a minute. And hopefully you can all see a big blue screen that has the title of what we're going to do.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. I do not have any background music, but what we will do is wait about 1 minute and let the rest of the people in, and then we will get started. And I won't sing because that would not be nice. And just so y'all know, Miriam Valdez is on from North Fort Bend also, and she'll be doing the roll call if you registered to make sure that you're here for your conservation committee. We'll make sure to get you checked off for your participation. And I think we can go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank y'all for coming. I know you probably, this wasn't your first priority, but we really do appreciate it. On the line today that I am seeing, representing our team from North Fort Bend, I see Christina Miller is on with ABHR. We have Miriam Valdez and Julia Frankovich are on from BGE. We have Director Dana Hollingsworth on. She is the director for the Fulshire area. And then we also have a guest speaker, Mr. Michael Willett, who's going to talk with us in a little bit. And we have a full schedule. Don't want to keep you too long, so I'm going to go ahead and just get right into it. We are recording this, so we can put this on the website for afterwards for any information that you would like to come back to or whatever you need. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to ask. This is professional, but not formal. I think y'all know me by now. So just want to help get y'all some information, and we can move along about our day. So let me get started here. Okay. All right. So again, thank y'all for coming. And so what we're going to talk about today is I have to do the general overview of North Fort Bend and how we've come into conservation. I have Julia Frankovich on, like I said, and she's going to talk about precipitation and weather and what our water demands have looked like thus far in 2024 compared to other years, and sort of what the future is looking like. I know we say that every year, and then every year is a surprise, but she's going to let us know what NOAA is saying on that. I'm going to let you know a little bit of information about the Water Provider Conservation Program and why you're here and what it's looking like for next year. And then Mr. Michael Willett with Touchstone District Communication Services, he's on, and I heard him speak at a Grand Lakes meeting, and it was awesome just hearing him point to point on like how to help residents really hear you and how to successfully hold events and stuff. So I asked him to come talk to us a little bit today about some effective outreach methods, and then want to show you a couple of items that are hot off the press for North Fort Bend, and then tell you about some resources we have, and then we can open it up for discussion. Have to always start off with subsidence and what it is. So subsidence literally means that the ground is sinking. Groundwater has historically been our primary source of drinking water and all water usage for Houston area. As the population in Houston increased, so did the water demands and how much groundwater has been pumped. Groundwater pumpage wasn't regulated here until 1975. By that time, though, some areas in Houston had sunk already over more than 10 feet. And next, we're going to talk about the mechanism of subsidence. But ultimately, these 4 icons, I'm trying to show you here, like, why should we care? Because we can't see it. It doesn't occur very fast. But subsidence does cause many issues. It threatens our groundwater supply by reducing the storage capacity permanently, lowering the ground surface, which can lead to increased likelihood and severity of flooding. And then also it causes costly infrastructure damage because of the settling of the land. And now we have an animation, which a lot of you have seen before. Joya, do you want to do this and I'll push the buttons?
I absolutely can if you'd like.
Listen here. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Frankovich. I work on North Fort Bend and at BGE. And we're going to go through this fun little animation. So Whitney just explained that subsidence means the ground is sinking, but the big question is, how does that actually work? It's really hard to see because it happens so slowly over a period of time. So on the screen, what we're looking at, excuse me, is a very simplified cross-section of the earth. And on top, what you're seeing is the ground surface. And then under the surface, we have soil, which is the brown there. And at points underground, there's saturated soil, and that's known as groundwater. And then the point that soil becomes saturated is known as the groundwater level. So the white rectangle represents a well, which is how we pump water out of the ground and we use it at the surface. So again, very simplified here. So groundwater is basically water that fills open spaces in underground soil. And Whitney, if you'll click again, I think there's a little, there we go. So we have these soil particles, and in Houston, that's primarily clay and silt, which are very tiny particles and very sensitive to water. And so you've all noticed it this October, I'm sure, around your house. The soils are very dry and they have shrunk. That same thing is happening deep under the ground where the groundwater is. And last thing here, in between those soil particles, you see that's all filled with water. And you can kind of think about underground, it's similar to a kitchen sponge where you have, all these holes throughout. And if you saturate that, it's filled with water. If you leave your sponge out to dry, it kind of shrivels up really, really big. And I don't know about you, but my sponges never look the same after I use them the first time. So if you take a look at a water system with groundwater, we're pumping water from underground to serve our community. And so when the amount of water that we're pumping out increases, so let's say we have development happening, we have more homes, or it's been really dry like it has been this October, more people are just using water, that increases. And when we start taking more water out of the ground than is going into the ground from rainfall, that's when we start to see this decline in groundwater levels. And so what happens is the groundwater level will lower. And then as that happens, that water that's saturating the soil gets depleted. And the soil particles will physically compact together because there's nothing kind of holding them right, like they're drying out. And that is actually a permanent loss of water storage capacity. The soil particles will never bounce back up to where they once were. There might be some amount of rebound, but it's never going to be where it once was once that groundwater level is depleted. And what that causes the surface to do is actually to go down. And so that's what's known as land subsidence and what we're trying to prevent at North Fort Bend.
So good. Thank you. I love that animation you made. So thank you again for making that and explaining it again. You do it so well.
You are welcome.
So as I said a little bit ago, the quest to combat subsidence, it began in 1975 with the creation of the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District. Working with surface water suppliers, these subsidence districts together, they control subsidence by managing the use of groundwater resources in the area. We, North Fort Bend Water Authority, we were created in 2005. Get asked this all the time, how our boundaries were determined. The Texas legislature actually determined our boundaries. Requests were taken to be excluded from our boundaries, and those had to be submitted no later than the 120th day after the effective date of the act went into play. We are in Area A of the Fort Bend Subsidence District. Here's our timeline on what the regulation stated. We had to have the submission of our groundwater reduction plan by 2008. We had to have a 30% reduction in groundwater usage by 2014. And we have to have a 60% reduction by 2027. If you recall, this was an earlier date, but it was moved back by the Subsidence District last year. And so here we are, North Fort Bend Water Authority. Our mission is to provide a plentiful supply of clean water from multiple sources for our families, for now and for the future, to conserve our groundwater and surface water supplies, to provide for tomorrow's water needs, and to be on water provider conservation program, conservation leadership committees, and to educate people on the value of water, where our water comes from, and the importance of protecting this vital resource. And now I'm going to play a video for you that we made that really explains sort of like the whole infrastructure process on how we are getting water all the way from the Trinity River to North Fort Bend area. Hopefully the volume will come through. If not, Miriam, please let me know. Okay, hopefully y'all could hear part of that. And, oh.
Things and so I get your thought.
All right.
Okay.
No, thank you, Chester. I always appreciate the thoughtfulness and where you come from with that thought too. Thank you.
I think, let's make sure
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Hello.
Hi, I'm Randy Connor, and I'm from Fulcher.
Hey, Brady, is that,
I was listening what the scheduling and the planned scheduling was on the distribution systems.
you know what?
You stopped at Cross Creek Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
What's the schedule?
Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Okay, you know what happened?
Yes.
An old video played. I am very sorry. One of the old webinars started going in the background. I was like, what's happening? Okay, let me get to the right slide. Okay, and now what we're going to do next, thank y'all for paying attention. God, that really confused me because I was looking for who was talking. So right now, Julia's going to come back and, like I said, I asked her to tell us where the weather and precipitation and everything is looking for this year. So go ahead, Julia.
Sure. So this year has been kind of interesting from a weather perspective. We had a really, really wet beginning of the summer, as you all are familiar with. And now it's been really, really dry. So it's been interesting to see how our water needs have transitioned with those weather changes. But looking at these graphs here, I'll explain first what we're looking at and then the trends we had. So on the precipitation and temperature graphs, there are charts for each month that show the 10th percentile for that month, generally where we see that. So 10th percentile on the bottom up to 90th percentile. And then the chunk in the middle is the 25th to 50th to 75th. So anywhere we're kind of 25th to 75th is pretty average for that month. Anywhere where we are below the bar, above the bar, that's very extreme for that month. And you can see for each month, we do see drastic changes. Like you'll notice in October, May, July, we have a big range of typical precipitation that we see. But looking at this graph, you'll notice that in May and in July, we had very extreme precipitation. And then the temperature was very low for July this year. And we've all noticed that we're really paying for it this October, which is not shown on this graph. But yeah, if you go to the next slide, Whitney, we can take a look at how this impacted our water usage trends. So on this graph here, what we're looking at is actual surface water in dark blue, groundwater in light blue, and reuse in purple by month for all of North Fort Bend Water Authority. The total demand is shown in million gallons. So when you read 1,000, it actually means a billion. And then this black line here is showing us what we would expect an average month of water usage to look like for that month. And you'll notice the May through July precipitation changes I just talked about, where they were pretty extreme, resulted in a drastic decrease in water consumption in July. That being said, we are kind of at pretty much like an average usage overall for North Fort Bend at this point in the year. Let me look up those exact numbers for you. I don't have them off the top of my head. So generally, we would expect to be around like 45.6. I think we're at 45.9 million gallons per day. Oh, there we go. It's up at the top. So yes, we are doing pretty average this year for where we'd expect to be. I do think October is going to be higher than an average October for obvious reasons. But yeah, overall things are looking really good. And in contrast, if anyone was with us last year when we had this talk, things were not looking so good. It was very hot all summer long. And we had one of the highest water usage years that North Fort Bend has ever had. So what's coming up in the weather? La Nina, for those of you that are familiar with that, is expected to form by the end of November 2024. And it's expected to last through January or March of 2025. And typically for our region, La Nina makes the weather drier and hotter. So we have that to look forward to this winter. I don't think we'll be seeing super cold weather this year, unfortunately, which will impact us next year and our water usage next year. All right, and then moving on to summer of 2025, NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they track weather and then they have climate predictions for the future. And right now they're expecting, as you'll see on these graphs, that the temperature for all of the United States is going to be above what it typically is. So this is looking at averages. Will we be above or will we be below that average? And they are expecting temperature to be significantly above, or sorry, that it's probability. So it's not like it'll be significantly above, but it will be more likely to be above an average. So we have another hot summer to look forward to, but it does look like there are either a chance of it being above or below our average precipitation. So hopefully we have more rain than normal.
Thank you. Reporting live from Houston, Julia Frankovich. Now moving on to conserve and a little bit about the history of conservation and North Fort Bend Water Authority. Said how we were created in 2005. Our board has always been very dedicated to conservation. So we started public outreach in 2006. From then started going into the schools. We did our mobile learning lab just a couple years after that and joined the Wise Guys program, which looking at the participation list, I believe all of you are members of, in 2011. And our mascot, Larry the Talking Sprinkler, who has undergone a little transformation, came into play. And then we started, our directors knew that we were doing a lot for the public, but we needed to find a way to incentivize our direct customers, you all, the MUDs. So that's when they started the Larry's Toolbox Water Conservation Program in 2016. We did that for 5 years, and lessons learned every couple of years, and so we revamped it, understanding that a lot of people didn't understand who Larry was, how that related to MUDs, a MUD program, and there was just a disconnect between the name of the program, and there were some initiatives and just some kinks, some way there were ways to improve it, and so we revamped it in 2022. 2 years ago, and it's pretty simple now. You're all in at the Water Provider Conservation Program, pretty straightforward. If you could come up with a fun name, we really have tried. But so it's pretty direct right now. And so that's what we're going to talk about here in a second. But just to throw in a little additional, just as a reminder, we do have the alternative water program that's, for reclaimed. And we do have the Water My Yard app, which will send you weekly watering advice and how much you need to do based off the local weather. And then also your district probably participates in the residential rebate program that we help administer for you.
And Whitney, if I could chime in, just a little plug for the alternative water program. So if you're, I love reuse. If your district has a reuse system, thank you so much. We really appreciate reclaimed water. If you don't have a reuse system at your wastewater plant and you're interested in that, or you see a need for reclaimed water, please reach out to us. We're always looking to encourage more systems to be built in the authority.
Thank you. And we currently have 10 known districts that are reporting right now. 8 of those are MUD owned, 2 of those are North Fort Bend owned. And we currently this is just people who are actually reporting. We know there's more out there, but we just aren't probably aware of everyone or don't have an agreement with everyone. And we did just reach over 5 billion gallons of reported reclaimed usage in the authority this year. Oh wait, am I going backwards? I'm having difficulties this round. So the goals for the program, why you're all here today, when we did revamp it in 2023, The revamp primarily came with us knowing that we need to increase board of director, city council member involvement, increase water saving potential, and also increase community awareness. With that, from those primary goals, we took what was just a bunch of point systems and we made sort of the core initiatives just to be in the program before you could be deemed successful. And these were initiatives that you were all already doing. Or two of them was doing the conservation information messaging out to your customers throughout the year, sending out high water user notifications. But what we added into the whole thing was the conservation committee. And that was just, what we saw was a lot of districts, the directors some of them weren't even aware that they were participating in this program, but then they would ask, where's our rebate? And it's important because we're such a large community, we're trying to really get information out to everybody, but it takes a village. And so we approach this as the funnel, right? We try to funnel information to our direct constituents, you all, and then it's our hope that you will all also disseminate. So we want everyone to be aware of what's going on and everyone to be able to get the information out there. So hence conservation committees, which you are all on and we are grateful for, just so we can have more people in the know about what we're doing. And on the conservation information, we saw that the primary way we were doing this was just giving you messages and putting those out. Y'all are putting them on the paper bills, but we see that most of everything's gone digital, and we wanted to offer more options and give you more resources on multiple ways to get that information out to the public. From that, like I said, we did away with the point system. So the way that the districts participate now is you can pick 3 after the core initiatives of smaller conservation initiatives, or you could pick 1, a larger initiative. We added in, because we want this to be your program, we want y'all to run it how you deem fit, what's best for your community. So we added in the unique programming in 2023. So I can just example, Fort Bend, County Mud 146, Long Meadow Farms. They got involved. They don't have AMR, but they found Flume, which is a monitoring device you could put on your meter, and they wanted to try it. So we started a pilot program with them, and that was a great idea because they weren't able to do a customer portal with smart meters, but they found a way that could probably really help them, and it's worked very well. So that's just an example of something that you could do. We have some districts that also, and it could count as your a la carte as a pick 3 or pick 1, depending on how big the initiative is. We have a couple of Infomark districts that will send out leak detection kits. Some people will also offer additional leak credits. So, it's whatever works for y'all. And so we just have to have a conversation, communicate with each other about what you're doing so we're aware. And when the end of the year comes, we're not just like, oh, you did something. So it's more about just communicating with us on what you're doing and using us as needed as resources. I focused a lot on communicating with residents. And with that, like I said, I have Mr. Michael Willett with Touchstone here. I heard him at a Grand Lakes meeting. Well, I've known him for years, but I heard him at a Grand Lakes meeting like 2 months ago, and just sharp and to the point on this is what you need to do to make something successful. And so I was like, hey, you want to come talk, please? And he said, yes, thank you so much, Michael. And so I asked Michael to come and talk to us a little bit about successfully communicating with residents. And thank you, Michael, for agreeing. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for that introduction. You can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So for everybody on the call, communication with your residents really kind of breaks down into 3 buckets. And over the next 3 slides, we'll kind of talk about what those 3 buckets are. We like to start with what's considered the traditional methods. These are print handouts, mailers, newsletters, signs, and exhibit boards. And what does that mean? That means that this is something where you have an art department that is putting it together. You are, drafting the content or having someone draft the content for you to kind of discuss the initiatives for your district. and then having it printed, in a traditional medium format. Print handouts can be one-pagers, they can be bifolds, trifolds. Mailers and postcards are similar in that vein as well. You can do full-blown newsletters. Usually those are done in quantity of 4 pages. You can do, 4, 8, 12, 16 pages if you want to do a full-blown newsletter. Signs can be bandit signs. They can be, up to 4x8 aluminum signs that you put in for, say, larger projects, like if you're putting in a purple pipe project or, new pump stations or lift stations. You can have those signs out there that kind of showcase the project while the project is going. And then exhibit boards would be for if you have any type of outreach event, which we'll talk on the next 2 slides from now. These would be things where you can kind of do a show and tell, be able to show, what those initiatives are, what options you have for water conservation and water projects in the district as you're educating your residents. So on the next slide, I talk more about the modern methods, right? Those digital methods, being able to have a district website that has the information on it and be able to push that information out to users who go to that website. Text alerts or email notification for emergency alerts or water impact, water conservation projects. Smart meter initiatives. We do a lot of smart meter initiatives with our districts. And so we do a lot of information digitally because it is a digital project and there's a web portal and an application portal. Social media. A lot of districts are starting to see conversations happening on social media. We've seen this trend for about the last 4 to 5 years that residents will start having conversations about the bill, the water authority fee, the trash, things like that on social media, and they don't bring it to the MUD. And so the MUD has to either have somebody who is monitoring that social media or be able to go and address that social media in a way that doesn't frustrate our legal teams, right? Video production, whether you have photography that you want to take of the district or you have a particular initiative that you're doing that would be best showcased. I have a district in Fort Bend. They're building a brand new wastewater treatment plant. It's a multi-million-dollar facility, and we're doing a lot of video production on not just the building of it, but then the use of it and kind of showcasing not just for the public, but also internally for their operator, how best practices and best usages and things like that on these modern technologies that are now being available for construction of water plants and wastewater treatment plants. And then again, your good old email campaigns, similar to mail campaigns, but digital mail for people to review a short form newsletter or a PDF or some sort of infographic where we're kind of showcasing the information for that outreach. And then on the next slide, we kind of talk about the in-district, right? The public outreach methods, whether that is a digital webinar, kind of like what we're doing today, where we're speaking and, people are listening, they're taking notes, they're going to be able to ask questions, but then also be able to showcase maybe a presentation or information. Open houses, this is kind of similar to like a high school science fair where you put up those informational boards, people can walk around, they can talk to all the stakeholders and principal players and kind of get the information that they're looking for. And then informational events. This can be anything from like a water conservation event to, say a multi-mud, understanding where the water comes from, understanding, why you pay for the water, why MUDs are good for this industry, and good for Texas and efficient use of taxpayer funds and, overall funding for services that we provide. So this is the public outreach portion where you really want to either have, directors who are really good at speaking and consultants who are really good at speaking, or have some sort of, communications team for you to be able to push that information out and kind of organize these larger events. So on the next slide, kind of discussing what are the best practices. So the first thing is you really kind of want to determine how best to reach your audience. If you have an older constituency, maybe you have more retirement communities, people don't turn over their homes every, 5 to 10 years, and you don't have a lot of starter homes, then those residents are probably going to be better reached via Facebook, direct mail, door tags, things of that nature, because they tend to get their information physically, right? Or they're on Facebook because, they're grandparents and they want to see their grandkids and you can reach them in that manner. They might be engaged in conversations on Nextdoor or Facebook, but for the most part, they're there just to get the information they want and move on. And if it's not sent directly to their home, then they don't really care all that much. Whereas if you have a younger constituency, those residents are buying starter homes, starter families, they're all technologically savvy, they use it for work, their phone is attached to them 24/7, then we know that we probably want to be able to reach them via text alert, email, possibly, direct email mailings, but definitely on social media and Nextdoor and Facebook and things like that. So you really need to determine how best to reach your audience. And then the efficient and effective use of community education. If you have residents that are very active on social media, they will probably be active in person and will want to kind of know what's going on. You could probably do a public event for them. If you don't have a constituency that's really interested in engaging on social media or engaging with the district directly at meetings, they're probably not going to come out to a public event unless there's an incentive. Incentives can be swag, it could be educational materials. If Whitney's team from North Fort Bend comes out and does a lot of their informational trailer type of things, if you have bounce houses for the kids and grandkids, snow cones, tacos, everybody likes to eat, then you might be able to get more people out, and that would be an efficient, effective use of that community outreach. Otherwise, we would suggest a webinar. We would suggest more digital outreach or, signs and things like that. But we want to say, you want to use multiple tools in your toolbox and then bring those tools to bear to maximize the communication for the least amount of money. You want to be able to show that you're using that taxpayer money for an efficient and effective outreach for your residents. And the second part of that, of course, is then find that synergy between what parts of the traditional, what parts of the digital, and what parts of the public outreach methods really fit your residents and how best to reach them. And then sometimes it's trial and error, right? Sometimes you'll try one thing, you'll try a newsletter, and nobody cares. Nobody wants to read 8 pages worth of water news every quarter. So then you want to try starting with something more digital. And again, newsletters, all your traditional material, we're usually building that in a digital format, and that digital format can be posted if you have a website. So you see that synergy between the traditional methods and then the digital methods, and then how best to public outreach. And then the last thing is really just keep that information fresh and updated. Make sure you're keeping up with latest in technology, you're keeping up with the latest information for the district. And as the information changes, whatever vehicles and whatever vectors you're using to be able to educate your residents, keep it updated, keep it fresh, keep it, on target, and make sure that it's always new information. If you keep rehashing the same old information, they're going to burn out. They'll unenroll from the emails. They'll unenroll from your alert system. So you really want to keep it up to date and then keep those residents engaged as you're reaching out to them. Seems complicated, but it really becomes very simple. And once you get a methodology and kind of a system started, and especially if you have someone on your team who has a good understanding of how to do public outreach, then you'll be able to share this information and be able to continue to do these kinds of events. And again, water conservation events always pull really well in the spring. And then smart meters, we usually suggest people, talk about smart meters if they have them in their district at least 3 to 4 times a year to really get that adoption for ion water or other application systems so that residents can take on the ownership of their usage and things like that.
Everything he said. Hopefully y'all caught. Michael, thank you. Thank you. Do you mind staying on? We only have like a couple more slides, but if we have any questions at the end.
Absolutely.
Okay, I really appreciate hearing that again. I can use that advice every day. Thank you. Speaking of opportunities to educate, so even though we are just now we're going now into winter, a lot of people don't think about the Wise Guys program. They also don't think about, we should really work on our customer portal numbers with our smart meters right now because usage is lower in the winter. It's actually the best time because it's important to remember that we want to be more proactive than reactive. And generally as a society, we're reactive. So if we can continue to push this throughout the year, and we want to have people do those evaluations or do their own evaluations. If you don't do Wise Guys, there's videos all over YouTube. We have some on our website too on how to actually do a tune-up of your system or, an inspection. We want them to do it before watering season begins because we want to have effective irrigation and not water the sidewalks. And we don't want those calls to come in all the time about high water bills. Also, great at a time if you have smart meters to go ahead and teach people how to set thresholds. What do they want their budget to be for the summer? What do they not want to go over? What do they want that maximum threshold to be? So winter is not a time to lay off of it. Hot off the press and not so hot anymore. It's a couple months old. Reminder, we have an HOA program, sort of a pilot program we're doing. And what this is, we, for your HOA, will go in and sort of do a usage analysis of how much water you're using versus what that should maybe look like, and then give you some recommendations on steps moving forward. We contracted with Masuin Consulting to do these, and so the North Fort Bend will pay for it if you want your HOA looked at. Again, recommend doing this before you see plants dying in the summer. Maybe consider doing it in the winter and the spring. Additionally, we just released this about a month and a half ago. Really excited about this. We have a one-pager now because we get those calls, and I know y'all do too, get asked all the time, what is that fee on my bill? So we have digital and paper if you need it, what that fee is, what it pays for, and the whole story. And then it directs people to our website to help explain a little bit of the picture about the North Fort Bend Water Authority fee. And also, we're really working on our Kids Corner. We currently have 2 coloring pages that are uploaded there, and we have stickers now if y'all want to try to get some kid interactive stuff going in your events. Also, reminder about our art contest. It is open for 2 more days. If anyone, if y'all have any questions on that, please let us know. I know a couple elementary schools that are participating, so we're excited to see those submissions in and how they decorated Larry the Talking Sprinkler. And then I just have a couple more slides, and then we have a couple more things to show y'all, and we will wrap it up. The resources that are available to you all. We have a communication toolkit that y'all it was made for y'all because we wanted to help you all out on explaining the who, what, and why. We have website copy, short or long form that you are welcome to copy verbatim, use on your websites. We have website links that you can use. We have a lot of digital content. So even with the imagery that comes with it on we have infrastructure, about the NFBWA infrastructure, we have conservation, all the different parts of our mission statement. We have information on the programs that you all participate in, the Wise Guys, and on the rebate program, information on the Water My Yard program. And then if you need physical bill inserts, we also have those. We have them for the Wise Guys, and we have them for the rebate program. So all you have to do is ask, or you go to the Dropbox folder that's on y'all's webpage on our website, and it's all there for you. Under public outreach, we have talking points that just have all the answers right there for you. So there are talking points on our website for you to take to, if you have to go speak at something, it gives you all the answers right there. Reminder that we have our learning lab. I know this next weekend we'll be using it at the Cinco at La Centera. The Cincos will be doing their water event this next Sunday. Our learning lab is available. We ask that you give us 60 days notice because it is always booked. But we have moving maps in there that illustrate our different aquifers and rivers. There's a rainwater harvesting simulator. There's videos in there and water usage by activities. Kids really and parents really do enjoy this. The learning lab will be undergoing a renovation this next year. So get her while you can before she's out of commission for a little bit. And you can request that on our website. You're always welcome to just direct people to us, our contact us page. tells them how to get right a hold of us and ABHR. And then since this is the way of the now, we have all the social handles that you're always welcome to tag us in. If we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn, we have YouTube, and then of course our website, which we've redone to help educate about this. And before I go to discussion, I was going to see if Julia, would you like to share, because we have a lot of directors on, the latest information on the Subsidence Plans groundwater update?
Yes, I would love to. I'm going to share my screen.
Let me stop my share. Julia has like the good meaty information. I'm more of the fluff. So she has the good stuff.
So every year, the Fort Bend Subsidence District issues an annual groundwater monitoring report. And basically, it reports on what subsidence rates they're seeing in their research, groundwater elevations, and just a checkup on what's going on. They take all of that information, do this annual report, but they also use it to inform their decision on how to regulate all of the groundwater reduction plans in the area. And that includes North Fort Bend. So we're regulated by Fort Bend Subsidence District, like Whitney said. And what I'm showing on my screen right here is their interactive tool. You can access this on their website, and it's showing the subsidence rates for the past, how many years is this? 5 years. So from 2019 through 2023. These dark burgundy points are not good. So that's showing a subsidence rate that's greater than 2 centimeters per year. And I know all of us don't think in centimeters. This point is 3.18 centimeters per year. That is about an inch per year, over an inch per year, which in 10 years is about a foot in 10 years of subsidence. And so all of that information we talked about before on, the groundwater levels dropping, subsidence is happening in our area. This is what that means. So the work that North Fort Bend is doing to bring more surface water to the area is going to prevent this from happening in this area. So right now, as a reminder, let's see if I can do it. I have a bar in the way. 1 sec. There we go. As a reminder, North Fort Bend's infrastructure currently delivers up to 19.5 million gallons per day from our Bel Air pump station right here to the eastern part of North Fort Bend, and we are limited to that 19.5 million gallons per day at the moment. The video Whitney showed earlier is that second phase of the work we're doing to bring water to the rest of the area for North Fort Bend. And you can see these dashed lines here. Those are the planned projects that we're working on right now in order to deliver that water to the rest of North Fort Bend's community. And I should say the next phase of the project, there will be more lines in the future. And so those more severe subsidence rates, you'll notice, are in the areas that have not yet been converted to surface water. And so that's one way we know that what we're doing so far is working and what's going into Fort Bend Subsidence District's model. If you're interested in learning more about this, you can go to our website, and under what we do, we have a What is Subsidence button. And there's all sorts of information on what subsidence is. And then if you click on subsidence research, it'll take you to all of the links to get to what I just showed you. And that's it.
Thank you, Julia. Okay, we have come to the part of the show where we're at discussion now. And also, we are looking up, I had a request if we could show some drone footage. The latest we have is from July, but what we'll do is we'll send out a link with Ian Pete's talking about the new water plant. We talked about it in our last webinar, and he showed really good footage of it. And it shows the massive project that we're doing and where that currently is. So we are at the discussion phase. So I have Michael here, I have Joya here, myself. Does anybody have any questions about what we've talked about today? Anyone? Yeah.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. This
Okay,
is
thank you.
Frakovich. With Mud 119, one of the directors there. I just have a question. Maybe it doesn't relate to here, but in the past, anybody has ever talked about desalination plants in legislation or an alternative to what we do? Or
A great question. We have looked into desalination in the past. Unfortunately, desalination right now is a very, very expensive water supply. I know surface water is an expensive water supply. Desalination is much more expensive than surface water currently. If you're talking about seawater desalination. We do have an aquifer that is underneath the Evangeline Aquifer called the Jasper, and it is a saline water supply for groundwater that technically, yes, you can desalinate that and use the water. And there's one well in our area that does that. It's Cinco Mud 1 owns that well. To my knowledge, the well is not yet capable of delivering water to the community. It's had some water quality issues that they're working through, and so that's what they're doing. However, that well and all groundwater brackish wells or saline wells are not considered alternative water for purposes of preventing subsidence because it hasn't been proved that it does prevent subsidence. So the well that Cinco owns is part of a research program through the Subsidence District where they're looking at that and evaluating if it still causes subsidence or if it could be considered alternative water. Does that answer your question?
thank you, Julia. Yes, absolutely, it does. In the desalination side of things, some parts of the world, getting water is a byproduct. So it's called cogeneration. So they actually use power generation on the shorelines, and the water supply is the side effect of it, right? So I don't know. I was just wondering if anybody ever raised that question or not.
Yeah, there is actually one seawater desalination plant that hasn't yet begun construction in the Freeport area. So that'll be constructed, I think within the next 10 years, I want to say. I might be wrong on that timeline. The challenge in our area with that is the transmission cost of getting the water from the shore over to us is very expensive because water treatment itself is expensive, but transmission of water is incredibly expensive when you're talking about, getting water miles and miles away from where it started.
I got you. Thank you so much, Julia. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Christina. I see Mr. Drake asked a question here about PFAS. So Christina, if you want to take that one. Oh, wait, I can't hear you. Oh, ma'am. Okay. And then,
Whitney, do you want to answer the one about restricting expansion of water usage first?
yeah. Do you want to do that one? Do you want me to?
Oh, I can.
Yeah, you're better.
Yeah. So kind of regardless of restricting water usage, which we do through this conservation program, through our messaging, all of that. The water, I guess the water expansion is necessary regardless. We'd always planned on this population expansion that we're seeing, and that's the water rights that we had secured. And so North Fort Bend's water supply has been in 2 stages, the first of which is that 19.5 million gallons that we're currently getting through Bel Air Pump Station. And then the next phase has always been planned to be this Northeast water purification plant expansion and then transmission line to get over to us. So that additional capacity is just necessary to serve the population growing in Fort Bend County. And unfortunately, the only way to really restrict the water usage that we're seeing would be to restrict development, which we don't have the authority to do, first of all, but wouldn't want to do for our area. It is growing. It's a great place. We have, though, over time seen that reduction in usage. That back when North Fort Bend first started, people were using so much more water than they currently are. And so that has been a huge win. This community really has been conserving water over time, and we're seeing the benefits of that.
Thank you. Mr. Roush, did that answer your question?
Impartial. I come from other areas of the country where if there isn't water, you can't build. And
Right.
if you don't have the supply, and if we say that rather than this 1/4 acre and less lot size, you wind up with 2 and 3 acre lot sizes. It's a matter of balancing the resources available with the housing plan. And I see from looking out here, Texas, we don't make any effort to say, no, you can't build if we can't support the infrastructure. And that's kind of disappointing to some extent, that your effort is to chase. You cannot succeed in your effort. No matter what you're doing, you can't succeed if all we're going to do is double down on how much we can consume. And that's what the expansion does create, especially as we've seen more and more apartment complexes go up. The density of water usage increases dramatically. So, you're trying to feed an insatiable animal, as it were.
I can only speak to North Fort Bend on that, but we do have enough water secured to serve North Fort Bend's population growth there.
And then I have Christina Miller called in on phone. Christina, do you want to answer the PFAS questions? And then we also have a follow-up after that. So Christina, are you there?
I am here, and I can't see y'all, so I'm flying a little bit blind. For those of you on the line who know me, I am terrible with technology, but so Whitney's going to be my eyes for me, and then I can answer questions. So the question I saw in the chat before I logged off of the computer to be able to chat with y'all on phone is basically, how is the Water Authority monitoring PFAS and what its plans are? So as y'all are probably aware, we've talked about it quite a bit in our meetings. The EPA did put regulations in place for certain of the forever chemicals earlier this year. And so water systems throughout the United States are really grappling with, how do we test for that? How do we see its presence in our water? And then how do we treat and how do we deal with that? And so this is a little bit of a preview of coming attractions. So right now, the North Fort Bend Water Authority wouldn't be required to test for it. However, our board is incredibly proactive. We receive all of our surface water from the city of Houston, so 19.5 million gallons a day currently. And the city of Houston right now is in their testing phase of the requirements, where they're gathering samples, and they are testing right now. Publicly, they have released that of the regulated forever chemicals or regulated PFAS compounds, they're not testing positive. That said, our board of directors understands that this topic is going to be of ultimate concern for who knows how many years going forward, because we've identified 6 PFAS chemicals that are of concern in the EPA's eyes, but we all encounter thousands upon thousands of these chemicals every day, and we don't even know what we're going to find. So our board 2 months ago at their meeting tasked the operator to say, you know what, we need to know what we're dealing with. And so they authorized them to go out and find testing facilities who are testing for it. So that way the North Fort Bend could test the water at their take points. Our initial testing lab, who does our analysis for North Fort Bend, generally said right now the parts per, I believe it's trillion, but basically the infinitesimal amounts to test for this, that testing facility wasn't even testing for it. They said, look, the test isn't incredibly reliable. We think that we just don't have that capability yet. So the operator came back and they found one lab that is testing for it, and we're proceeding with testing. We coordinated with the city of Houston at our last quarterly meeting, and we told Houston, look, we are testing for this. And the city said, we support that. Please let us know what your test results are. And then in response, the city said, we're actually using 2 labs to make sure that we're getting standard test results and that there aren't any errors. And so we've asked the city to provide us with the information for both of their labs, so that way that might be a best practice for us as well. We have not received those first test results back. Our board currently intends to test that once a month. And then once we receive that back, we're going to share that in our meeting, because whether that is good or bad or in between, we don't know if there's a problem until we know. And if there is a problem, we cannot formulate a response until we know that. So right now, it's a little bit of a preview of coming attractions, but as soon as we get those test results back, we'll be announcing those at the next meeting. Fingers crossed, those are, we are negative. I don't want to say those are positive results, because that would imply there's something in the water. Fingers crossed that we don't have anything, but we also recognize that is a snapshot in time. So we may not have a forever chemical today. That doesn't mean in 6 months we're good. And so our board is committed to ongoing monitoring of that. And then working with the city of Houston, because our water is only as good as the water that the city of Houston delivers us. And so I know that is a long non-answer, but our board is very focused on evaluating if we have an issue presently or if we have an issue in the future with the best testing available. So preview of coming attractions, we should know more in the next month or so to be able to communicate that.
And just to also chime in on that for Mr. Drake's question, all public water systems are required to deliver water that meets state and federal drinking water regulations. So there are maximum contaminant levels that all water has to be tested for. And if it's delivered to the public, it has to meet those standards. So yes, the water that you will be receiving will meet those standards. It is required to.
Thank you, both Christina and Joya. Do we have any further questions? Conservation always goes to these. I wanted to keep talking about conservation stuff. I understand. Any other questions, though, before I have everyone on the line, if there's any more? Well, thank you again to Michael Willett with Touchstone for coming and talking to us about effective means of communicating with residents. And thank you to Joya, thank you to Christina, and thank you all directors for coming to the Water Conservation Provider Program Conservation Committee meeting. We'll make sure to note that you are all here, and y'all holler if y'all have. And Dana, Director Hollingsworth, sorry, thank you for being here. Sorry, I was just looking at the people whose faces were on. Dana, do you have anything you want to say before we go?
No, y'all covered everything. I had a couple of comments, but you ended up covering it during the session. So thank you so much for hosting and organizing this. I thought it was a lot of information in a short period of time. Thank you.
Very much so. Thank you. And it'll be on YouTube in just a little bit after it uploads. So thank y'all again, and y'all holler anytime if y'all have any questions. That's what we're here for. So hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.